The fluorescent lights of Nashville General Hospital's emergency room hurt Julie Henderson's eyes as another wave of pain crashed through her body. She gripped the cold metal armrest of the wheelchair, her knuckles white, her breath coming in short gasps. Sweat dripped down her face despite the cool air conditioning. The automatic doors had barely closed behind her when she felt something shift inside her body, something urgent and terrifying. "Please," she gasped to the woman at the registration desk. "My baby is coming. Right now. I can feel it." The woman's eyes widened as she looked at Julie, taking in her wet jeans and the puddle forming on the floor beneath the wheelchair. She grabbed the phone immediately. "I need a gurney in the ER entrance. Now. We have a woman in active labor." Julie's vision blurred with tears. Not from the pain, though that was getting worse with each passing second, but from fear. Fear of what would happen when they asked for her insurance card. Fear of the bill she could never pay. Fear of what they would do when they realized she was alone, broke, and desperate. She had exactly $17 in her pocket. She lived in a rundown motel on the edge of town, the kind with hourly rates and suspicious stains on the carpet. She worked 2 part-time jobs at convenience stores, but neither offered benefits. When she found out she was pregnant 8 months ago, she had tried to save money for this moment. But between rent, food, and bus fare, there was never anything left over. 2 nurses rushed toward her with a gurney. They moved with practiced efficiency, transferring her from the wheelchair onto the thin mattress. One of them, a woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, took her hand. "What's your name, honey?" Her voice was kind, which made Julie want to cry even harder. "Julie. Julie Henderson." "Okay, Julie. I'm Nurse Patricia Moore. How far apart are your contractions?" "I don't know. They just kept getting closer. They are happening all the time now." Julie squeezed her eyes shut as another contraction ripped through her. She heard herself make a sound she didn't recognize, something animal and raw. They wheeled her through a maze of hallways. Doors blurred past. People in scrubs moved out of the way. Someone was talking on a radio, calling for a doctor. Julie tried to focus on breathing, on staying conscious, on not completely falling apart. The delivery room was bright and cold. Too bright. Too cold. They transferred her to a bed and someone started cutting away her clothes. Hands touched her everywhere. Monitors beeped. A blood pressure cuff squeezed her arm. "Julie, I'm Dr. Rebecca Walsh." A woman with red hair and green eyes appeared beside her. She wore blue scrubs and a calm expression. "I'm going to take care of you and your baby. You're doing great." "I don't have insurance." The words tumbled out of Julie's mouth between contractions. "I don't have money. I can't pay for this. But please don't make me leave. Please help my baby. I'll figure out a way to pay you back. I promise. Please." Dr. Walsh squeezed her hand firmly. "We're not going anywhere. Your job right now is to have this baby. Let me worry about everything else. Do you understand?" Julie nodded, but she didn't believe it. She had spent her whole life learning that nothing came for free. There was always a catch, always a price, and she had nothing to pay with except promises she probably couldn't keep. "Okay, Julie." Dr. Walsh moved to the end of the bed. "You're fully dilated. On the next contraction, I need you to push." The next hour was a blur of pain and effort. Julie pushed when they told her to push. She breathed when they told her to breathe. Nurse Patricia held one of her hands while another nurse held the other. Dr. Walsh stayed calm and encouraging, talking her through each step. "One more push, Julie. Give me everything you have." Julie bore down with every ounce of strength left in her body. She felt a release, a rush, and then the most beautiful sound she had ever heard filled the room. Her baby was crying. But something was wrong. The room went quiet. Too quiet. The nurses exchanged glances. Dr. Walsh's face changed, just for a second, before she schooled it back into professional calm. "What's wrong?" Julie tried to sit up, panic flooding her system with fresh adrenaline. "What's wrong with my baby? Let me see him, please." They cleaned him quickly, wrapped him in a white blanket, and Nurse Patricia brought him to her. Julie's arms ached to hold him. When she finally looked down at her son's face, she understood the silence. His face was covered almost entirely by a deep purple birthmark. It spread from his forehead down across his left eye, over his cheek, and down to his tiny chin. It was raised and textured, covering more than half of his face. His right eye was swollen shut from the delivery, but his left eye, the one visible through the birthmark, was a brilliant blue. He was the most beautiful thing Julie had ever seen. Is he okay? She looked up at Dr. Walsh with desperate eyes. Is he healthy? Can he see? Can he breathe? His vitals are strong. Dr. Walsh came closer, examining the baby with gentle hands. His breathing perfectly. His heart sounds good. But Julie, your son has what's called a port wine stain. It's a type of birthmark caused by blood vessels developing differently. We need to do some tests to make sure everything else is okay. Julie held her son closer. He had stopped crying and was making small sounds, his tiny fist waving in the air. She guided his hand to her finger, and he grabbed it with surprising strength. Will it go away? She hated how her voice shook. Can you fix it? Dr. Walsh's expression was kind but serious. These birthmarks don't go away on their own. There are treatments, but they are expensive. They involve laser therapy over many sessions. Without treatment, it will likely get darker and thicker as he grows. How expensive? Julie knew the answer would break her heart before Dr. Walsh even spoke. Tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe more depending on how many treatments he needs. The room spun. Julie looked down at her baby, at his perfect little nose and his tiny mouth that was trying to find something to suckle. Tears streamed down her face, dropping onto his blanket. I can't pay for that. Her voice was barely a whisper. I can barely pay for bus fare. I don't have insurance. I don't have family. I have nothing. She looked up at Dr. Walsh, at Nurse Patricia, at all the faces in the room. Some looked pitying. Some looked uncomfortable. But none of them looked away. Please don't give up on him. Julie heard herself begging. Please. I know I can't pay. I know I'm nobody. But he's innocent. He didn't ask to be born to a mother like me. Please help him. I'll do anything. Work any job. Sign any paper. Just please help my baby. Could you really walk away if you saw a mother begging to save her child? Subscribe and comment what you would do if you were in that delivery room. Dr. Walsh looked at Julie for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly, and something changed in her expression. It softened but also became more determined. We're going to help you, Julie. She pulled up a chair and sat down beside the bed. Both of you. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Julie nodded, even though trust was something she had learned not to give freely. But what choice did she have? Dr. Rebecca Walsh sat in the small chair beside Julie's hospital bed, watching the young mother cradle her newborn son. The baby had nursed for the first time, and was now sleeping peacefully in Julie's arms. In the soft afternoon light filtering through the window, the port wine stain on his face looked even more prominent, spreading across his delicate features like spilled wine on white linen. Rebecca had been a pediatrician for 20 years. She had seen countless cases of port wine stains, also called nevus flammeus. But this was one of the most extensive she had encountered. The birthmark covered approximately 60% of the baby's face, extending from his hairline down to his jaw, encompassing his left eye completely. She knew what Julie was facing. The stares. The questions. The whispers. Children could be cruel, and adults could be just as bad in their own way. Without treatment, the birthmark would darken over time, becoming more raised and textured. It could develop complications like glaucoma if it affected the eye area, which in this case it clearly did. But Rebecca also knew something that gave her hope. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for. Dr. Michael Stevens. They had met at a medical conference in Portland 3 years ago. He was doing groundbreaking research on laser treatment for port wine stains, particularly in infants. His success rates were remarkable, and he was always looking for new cases to study. Julie, I need to make a phone call. Rebecca stood up. Can you give me about 15 minutes? Julie looked up, her eyes red from crying but also soft from looking at her baby. Okay. Rebecca walked to her office and closed the door. She dialed the number and waited. On the third ring, a familiar voice answered. Mike Stevens. Mike, It's Rebecca Walsh from Nashville General. I have a case I need to talk to you about. She explained Julie's situation, describing the baby's birthmark in detail, the extensive coverage, the lack of insurance, and the mother's desperate circumstances. She sent photos from the delivery room through the secure medical network. There was a long pause on the other end. Rebecca, this is exactly the kind of case I've been researching. Mike's voice was excited. That distribution pattern, the extensive facial coverage. If we start treatment early, within the first few months, we could potentially reduce the birthmark by 70 to 80%. Maybe more. Can you help her? Rebecca held her breath. I can do better than help. I can cover everything. My research grant just got renewed. We have funding specifically for cases like this. I'll fly to Nashville next week to evaluate the baby. If the mother consents, we can start treatment as soon as is 8 weeks old. Rebecca felt relief wash over her. Mike, you have no idea what this means. Actually, I do. This kind of early intervention can change a child's entire life. Send me all the medical records. And Rebecca, tell the mother that there's hope. Real hope. After ending the call, Rebecca took a moment to compose herself. Then she returned to Julie's room. The young mother was singing softly to her baby, a lullaby that Rebecca didn't recognize. Julie, I have good news. Julie's head snapped up, her eyes wide and fearful, as if she was afraid to hope. Rebecca sat down again and took her hand. I called a specialist in Portland. His name is Dr. Michael Stevens, and he's one of the leading researchers in treating port wine stains in infants. He wants to help your son. But I told you, I can't pay. You don't have to pay. Rebecca squeezed her hand. He has a research grant. He's looking for cases exactly like your son's. If you agree to let him study your baby's case and publish the results, he'll cover all the treatment costs. Everything. The laser therapy, the follow-up appointments, all of it. Julie stared at her, uncomprehending. What? Your son can get treatment. The best treatment available. Starting when he's about 8 weeks old. Dr. Stevens believes he can reduce the birthmark by 70% or more. Tears started flowing down Julie's cheeks again, but this time they were different. These weren't tears of despair. They were tears of disbelief, of hope, of something Julie had almost forgotten existed. Why would he do that? Her voice cracked. Why would anyone do that for us? Because that's what doctors are supposed to do. Rebecca smiled gently. Help people. And Mike is passionate about this research. Your son's case could help develop better treatments for thousands of other children. Julie looked down at her baby, at his purple-marked face, at his tiny perfect hands. So he can have a normal life. With treatment, yes. It will take time. Multiple sessions over several years. But each treatment will make the birthmark lighter and flatter. By the time he starts school, it might be barely noticeable. Julie's whole body shook with sobs. She held her baby close, kissing his forehead over and over. Thank you. Oh God, thank you. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. By fighting for him. By not giving up. Rebecca stood and walked to the door, then turned back. Julie, there's something else we need to take care of. The hospital bills. Julie's face fell again. I know. I'll pay what I can. I'll set up a payment plan. I'll work extra shifts. Actually, you qualify for our charity care program. You make below the income threshold, you have no insurance, and you have a dependent. The hospital will cover your delivery costs completely. Julie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. And there's more. Rebecca pulled a folder from under her arm. I've been in contact with several programs. There's a WIC program that will provide formula and food assistance. Medicaid should cover your baby's basic health care until the treatments start. And there's a local charity that provides clothing and supplies for newborns. She laid out pamphlets and application forms on the rolling table beside the bed. I don't understand. Julie's voice was small. Why are you doing all this? Rebecca thought about how to answer. She could tell Julie about her own daughter, born 20 years ago with a heart defect, and how the kindness of strangers had saved her life. She could explain about her belief that medicine was a calling, not just a career. But instead, she simply said, "Because you need help. And I can help you. It's that simple." Julie reached out and grabbed Rebecca's hand with surprising strength. "I won't forget this. I promise. Someday, somehow, I'll pay it forward. I'll help someone else the way you're helping me. That's all I ask." Rebecca smiled. "Now, have you thought about a name for your son?" Julie looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms. "Connor. His name is Connor James Henderson. It's a strong name." Rebecca made a note in her file. "Connor is lucky to have a mother who fights for him." As Rebecca left the room to make more calls and fill out more forms, she felt the familiar warmth that came with knowing she had made a real difference. She had been in medicine long enough to know that not every case ended this way. But when they did, when everything aligned and help arrived just when it was needed most, it reminded her why she had become a doctor in the first place. In the room behind her, Julie held Connor close and whispered promises to him. Promises that he would be okay, that he would be loved, that the birthmark on his face would not define him. And for the first time since she had found out she was pregnant, she believed that maybe, just maybe, things would work out. Nurse Patricia knocked softly before entering. "I have the birth certificate paperwork for you to fill out. And dinner will be here soon. Do you have any dietary restrictions?" "No, thank you." Julie took the papers with shaking hands. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why is everyone being so nice to me?" Julie's voice was thick with emotion. "I'm nobody. I have nothing to offer. But everyone here has treated me like I matter." Patricia sat on the edge of the bed, her weathered face kind. "You're a mother who loves her child. That makes you important. And that baby boy, birthmark and all, is precious. Don't you ever think otherwise." She helped Julie fill out the paperwork, explaining each section patiently. When they got to the part about the father, Julie left it blank. Patricia didn't ask questions. After Patricia left, Julie looked around the clean hospital room, with its white walls and beeping monitors. Outside the window, the sun was setting over Nashville, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Somewhere in this city, there were people who had given up on her. Landlords who had evicted her. Employers who had fired her. Friends who had disappeared when times got hard. But hey, in this room, she had found something different. She had found people who saw her struggle and chose to help instead of turn away. She had found doctors who solved problems instead of creating them. She had found hope where she expected none. Connor stirred in her arms, making small sounds. Julie adjusted him so he could nurse again. As he latched on and began to feed, she felt a fierce protectiveness surge through her body. This was her son. His face might shock people. His appearance might make strangers stare. But he was hers, and he was perfect, and she would never let anyone make him feel less than that. "We're going to be okay," she whispered to him. "I don't know how yet, but we're going to be okay." And for the first time in a very long time, Julie Henderson believed her own word. Julie woke to soft sunlight streaming through the hospital room window. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then Connor made a small sound in the bassinet beside her bed, and everything came rushing back. The emergency room, the delivery, the birthmark, Dr. Walsh, the promise of help. She sat up carefully, her body sore from labor. Connor was awake, his tiny fists waving in the air. Julie lifted him out of the bassinet, marveling at how light he was, how fragile. The purple birthmark covering half his face looked darker in the morning light, more pronounced. But his eyes were open now, both of them, and they were the most beautiful shade of blue she had ever seen. "Good morning, sweet boy." She kissed his forehead, breathing in that new baby smell that everyone always talked about. It was real. It smelled like hope. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Nurse Patricia entered with a breakfast tray, followed by a younger nurse Julie hadn't met yet. "Good morning, Mama." Patricia set the tray on the rolling table. "How are you feeling today?" "Sore, but okay." Julie shifted Connor in her arms. "Is Dr. Walsh coming by today?" "She'll be here during rounds. But first, I wanted to talk to you about something." Patricia pulled up a chair while the other nurse left. "I have an idea, but only if you're comfortable with it." Julie felt her guard go up automatically. She had learned to be suspicious of people's ideas. They usually involved her doing something she didn't want to do. What kind of idea? Patricia pulled out her phone. I've worked in pediatrics for 30 years. I've seen a lot of children with port wine stains and other birthmarks. And I've noticed something. People don't talk about them enough. Parents feel ashamed or scared. They hide their kids. And that makes everything worse. She leaned forward, her voice gentle but passionate. What if we shared Connor's story? Not his medical records or anything private. Just his picture and your story about how the doctors are helping you. About how you don't have to face this alone. Julie's arms tightened protectively around Connor. Share his picture. Where? On social media. On the hospital's page maybe, or on my personal page. Just to raise awareness. To show other parents in your situation that help is available. That they shouldn't give up. People will say mean things. Julie's voice was flat. They'll make fun of him. They'll call him names. Some might. Patricia nodded honestly. But I think more people will be kind. And the ones who need to see it, the other parents struggling with the same thing, they'll find hope. Just like you found hope yesterday. Julie looked down at Connor. He was watching her face with that intense way newborns had, as if he was trying to memorize every detail. What would he want her to do? Would he want to hide? Or would he want to help other children like him? What would the post say? Julie asked slowly. Patricia's face lit up. Just the truth. That you're a young mother who was terrified. That you thought you couldn't afford to help your son. But that doctors stepped up. That programs exist. That there's hope and treatment available. We won't use your last name if you don't want. Just your first name and Connor's. Julie took a deep breath. Okay. But I want to see it before you post it. Absolutely. Patricia smiled and stood up. Let me take a photo, and I'll write something up. You can approve every word. 10 minutes later, Patricia returned with her phone. She showed Julie the photo first. It was beautiful. Connor was wrapped in a white hospital blanket, his face turned toward the camera. The birthmark was visible, covering the left side of his face in deep purple, but his blue eyes were bright and alert. He looked perfect. Then Patricia showed her the caption she had written. This is Connor. He was born yesterday to a brave young mother named Julie. Connor has a port wine stain covering much of his face. Julie was terrified she couldn't afford treatment, but our hospital connected her with specialists and programs that will help her son get the care he needs. If you're a parent facing a similar situation, please know that help is available. Don't give up. Don't hide. Reach out. There are people who want to help. Julie read it 3 times. Tears blurred her vision. It's perfect. Post it. Patricia posted it on her personal page and tagged the hospital's official page. Then she set her phone down and went about her nursing duties, checking Julie's vitals and showing her how to change Connor's diaper properly. An hour later, Patricia's phone started buzzing. Then it didn't stop. She picked it up, and her eyes went wide. Julie, you need to see this. The post had been shared 200 times. The comments were pouring in. Julie read them with shaking hands. This baby is beautiful. God bless this mother and her son. Sharing this. Every parent needs to know help is available. My daughter had a birthmark. Early treatment changed her life. Don't give up. Where can we donate to help this family? More shares. More comments. The number kept climbing. 500 shares. 1,000. Patricia's phone couldn't keep up with the notifications. By noon, the post had been shared 10,000 times. News websites were reaching out to Patricia, asking for interviews. Parent groups were sharing it. Medical pages were discussing the treatment options. And people from all over the country were asking how they could help Julie and Connor. Dr. Walsh came into the room looking stunned. Julie, have you seen what's happening online? I can't believe it. Julie held Connor closer. All these people care about us. They don't even know us. That's the power of sharing your story. Dr. Walsh sat down, scrolling through her own phone. And Julie, there's something else. A couple from Boston saw the post. Their names are Richard and Helen Miller. They want to help. Help how? They want to cover any medical expenses that aren't covered by Dr. Stevens' research grant. Anything Connor needs. They lost their own son to a heart defect 10 years ago, and they've been looking for ways to help other families ever since. Julie felt like she couldn't breathe. They want to pay for my baby's treatment? Why? Because they can. And because they wish someone had helped them when they needed it. Dr. Walsh showed Julie an email on her phone. They are asking for permission to set up a fund for Connor. They want to make sure he gets everything he needs, not just the laser treatments. Eye exams, follow-up care, anything. Can I write to them? Julie's voice was small. Can I thank them? They specifically asked that you don't feel obligated to thank them. They said the only thing they want is for Connor to get better. Dr. Walsh smiled. But if you want to write them a letter, I can pass it along. Julie spent the next hour writing a letter on hospital stationery. She thanked Richard and Helen Miller for their kindness. She told them about Connor's bright blue eyes and strong grip. She promised to keep them updated on his progress. She wrote that she didn't know how to repay their generosity, but that she would find a way to help other families someday, the way they were helping her. When she finished, she sealed the letter in an envelope with trembling hands. By evening, the post had been shared 50,000 times. Patricia's phone was overwhelmed. The hospital's social media manager had to help field messages and comments. And the messages kept coming. A church in Austin was organizing a collection of baby supplies to send to Julie. A company in Portland that made specialized clothing for children with medical conditions wanted to send Connor free clothes as he grew. A photographer in Nashville offered to take professional photos of Connor and Julie for free to document his journey. A family in Denver sent money through the hospital to help Julie get an apartment. Julie couldn't process it all. She sat in her hospital bed, Connor sleeping in her arms, watching the numbers climb on Patricia's phone. Thousands of people were sharing her son's face. Thousands of people were praying for them. Hundreds of people were offering real, tangible help. I don't understand why everyone cares. Julie looked up at Patricia with wet eyes. We're nobody special. You're a mother who loves her child. Connor is a baby who needs help. That's all people need to know. Patricia sat beside her. Humans are good, Julie. We forget that sometimes because the news shows us all the bad things. But when we see someone who really needs help, when we see a mother fighting for her baby, we want to do something. We want to be part of the solution. That night, Julie couldn't sleep. She held Connor and read through hundreds of comments on her phone, which Patricia had let her borrow. People from every state. People from other countries. People sharing their own stories of children with birthmarks, with medical conditions, with struggles they had overcome. One comment stood out. It was from a woman in Tennessee named Carol Stevens. My son had a port wine stain on his arm. We couldn't afford treatment. He's 15 now, and he hides it every day. I wish I had known help was available. Thank you for sharing this. You're giving hope to so many families. Julie screenshot the comment and saved it. This was why Patricia had wanted to share the story. Not for attention, not for pity, but to give hope to parents like Carol, who were suffering in silence, thinking they had no options. Connor stowed in her arms, rooting around for food. Julie positioned him to nurse, and as he latched on, she made a silent promise. She would never hide him. She would never make him feel like his birthmark was something to be ashamed of. And when he was old enough to understand, she would tell him about this moment. About how thousands of strangers came together to help a baby they had never met, simply because he needed help. The post continued to spread through the night. By morning, it had reached 100,000 shares. News outlets were covering the story. Viral photo of baby with birthmark inspires wave of support. Strangers rally to help mother and newborn son. The power of community. How social media connected family with life-changing treatment. And through it all, Julie Hendosen held her son and learned a lesson she had never expected to learn. That kindness was real. That people cared. That asking for help wasn't weakness but courage. And that sometimes, when you're at your lowest point, the world surprises you by lifting you up. The next morning, Julie was cleared to leave the hospital. Dr. Walsh came by early with discharge papers and a folder full of information about follow-up appointments, support groups, and resources. Connor had passed all his newborn tests, and despite the extensive birthmark, he was perfectly healthy. Before you go, there's someone here to see you. Dr. Walsh smiled mysteriously. A woman in her 60s entered the room, wearing a floral dress and carrying a large gift bag. She had kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a loose bun. Julie, this is Margaret Shaw. She's from Community Baptist Church here in Nashville. Margaret set down the bag and came straight to Julie, taking both her hands. We saw Connor's story online. Our whole congregation has been praying for you both, and we want to help. That's so kind, but you don't have to. Julie started. Hush now. Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. Helping is what we do. Now, first things first. Where are you living? Julie's cheeks burned with embarrassment. A motel on Harris Street. The weekly rate is affordable. Margaret's face fell. That's no place for a baby. No place for you either. Here's what we're going to do. Our church has a benevolence fund. We use it to help people in crisis. We're going to help you get into a real apartment. I can't accept that much money. Julie shook her head. It's too much. You can and you will. Margaret squeezed her hands. Julie, this is what community is for. You're not alone anymore. We've already found you a 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. First month's rent is paid. Security deposit is paid. We even got you furniture from donations. Julie started crying. Again. She felt like all she had done for 2 days was cry. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because you're not a stranger. You're our neighbor. And neighbors help each other. Margaret pulled a key from her pocket. This is yours. The address is on the tag. A group from the church is there right now setting everything up. When you're ready to go, call me. I'll drive you there myself. After Margaret left, promising to return in an hour, Julie sat in stunned silence. Nurse Patricia helped her get dressed and pack up the handful of things she had brought to the hospital. It's overwhelming, isn't it? Patricia folded Connor's receiving blanket. All this kindness. I keep waiting for someone to tell me it's a joke. Julie's voice was quiet, or that there are strings attached. Nobody just helps people like this. People do. More often than you think. You just haven't been in a position to receive it before. Patricia handed her the blanket. Julie, I want you to remember something. Accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. And someday, when you're in a position to help someone else, you'll understand why these people are doing this. They are not doing it for recognition or gratitude. They are doing it because it feels good to make a difference. Margaret returned with her car, a clean blue sedan that smelled like cinnamon. She had a car seat already installed in the back. Borrowed it from my daughter, she explained. You can keep it as long as you need it. The drive to the apartment took 20 minutes. Margaret talked the whole way, telling Julie about the church, about the neighborhood, about the programs available to help young mothers. She didn't ask about Connor's father. She didn't pry into Julie's past. She just talked about the future and all the possibilities it held. The apartment was in a quiet complex with trees and a playground. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and safe. Margaret led Julie up to the second floor, Unit 2B. When Margaret opened the door, Julie gasped. The apartment was fully furnished. A couch and coffee table in the living room. A dining table with 4 chairs. A crib set up in the smaller bedroom, complete with a mobile hanging above it. The larger bedroom had a full bed with fresh linens. The kitchen had dishes, pots, pans, and even food in the cabinets and refrigerator. A group of women from the church were there, adding final touches. They had hung cheerful curtains in the nursery. They had stocked the bathroom with towels, toiletries, and even baby bath supplies. There were diapers, wipes, formula, bottles, and clothes in every size for Connor. One woman, younger than the others, approached Julie with a shy smile. I'm Amy. I have a 2-year-old, so I know what you'll need. If anything is missing, just let me know. We want to make sure you have everything. Julie couldn't speak. She walked through the apartment in a daze, Connor in her arms, taking in every detail. These strangers had created a home for her. A real home. In the nursery, she found a rocking chair with a note taped to it. For those late-night feedings. May you find peace in these quiet moments. The Johnson family. The women from the church hugged her one by one as they left. They gave her their phone numbers. They invited her to church on Sunday. They told her about a mom's group that met on Tuesday mornings. And they promised to check on her in a few days. When it was just Julie, Connor, and Margaret left, Margaret sat her down on the couch. I know this is a lot. But you need to understand something, Julie. This isn't charity. This is community. We're not helping you because we pity you. We're helping you because we're part of the same family, the human family. And families take care of each other. She pulled out another envelope. This is from various members of our congregation. It's enough to cover your utilities for a few months and give you a little cushion while you figure things out. Don't argue with me. Just take it. Julie took the envelope with shaking hands. I'll pay it back. Somehow. I promise. The only thing I want you to pay back is kindness itself. Help someone else when you're able. That's how this works. Margaret stood to leave. Oh, and one more thing. Tom Wilson, who owns Nashville Connor Cafe downtown, called the church. He saw Connor's story online. He's looking for waitstaff, and he says he can work with whatever schedule you need because of Connor. Flexible hours. Good tips. If you're interested, go talk to him. After Margaret left, Julie sat in the quiet apartment, Connor sleeping in her arms. She looked around at all the kindness that surrounded her. The furniture, the food, the clothes, the hope. For so long, she had believed she had to do everything alone. She had believed that asking for help was admitting failure. She had built walls around herself, keeping everyone out, convinced that she couldn't trust anyone. But these people had torn down those walls without even asking permission. They had seen her need and met it. They had seen her fear and replaced it with hope. They had seen her empty hands and filled them with blessing after blessing. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. How's the apartment? Julie typed back with one hand, the other holding Connor. It's perfect. I don't know how to thank everyone. You already have, by accepting the help. That's all anyone wanted. Oh, and check your email. Dr. Stevens sent over the treatment plan. First appointment is in 6 weeks. Julie opened her email and read through Dr. Stevens' message. He had outlined everything. The initial consultation. The treatment schedule. What to expect at each appointment. The projected outcomes. He wrote in clear language, explaining that Connor would need treatments every 6 to 8 weeks for the first year, then spacing out as the birthmark faded. He estimated that by Connor's 3rd birthday, the birthmark would be significantly reduced. At the bottom of the email, he had written, Julie, you're doing everything right. Connor is lucky to have you as his mother. We're going to take great care of him. That evening, as the sun set over Nashville, Julie fed Connor in the rocking chair in his new nursery. She sang to him softly, making up the words as she went, singing about hope and kindness and all the good people in the world who had proven that love was stronger than fear. There was a knock at the door. Julie settled Connor in his crib and went to answer it. A delivery person stood there with boxes stacked on a dolly. Delivery for Connor Henderson. He checked his clipboard. That's my son. But I didn't order anything. Someone did. He started bringing in boxes. 5 of them. All labeled with different company names. After he left, Julie opened them one by one. The church from Austin had sent baby supplies. The clothing company from Portland had sent outfits in sizes from newborn to 2 years. The photographer from Nashville had sent a gift certificate for a photo session. And 2 boxes were filled with handwritten letters from people all over the country, sending encouragement, prayers, and small gifts. Julie sat on the floor and read letter after letter. Some were from parents whose children had birthmarks. Some were from people who just wanted to help. Some included cash, $5 or $10, with notes saying for diapers or buy yourself something nice. One letter stood out. It was from a teenage boy in California named Jake. I have a birthmark on my neck. Kids used to make fun of me. But my mom taught me that I'm more than what people see. Tell Connor when he's older that he's beautiful exactly the way he is. And that there are people like me all over the world, cheering for him. Julie tucked that letter into a special box. She would save all of these letters for Connor. Someday, When he was old enough to understand, she would show him how many people had loved him before they ever met him. How many strangers had opened their hearts and their wallets to help a baby with a purple birthmark. That night, Julie slept in her own bed for the first time in months. Not a motel mattress. Not a hospital bed. Her own bed, in her own apartment, with her son sleeping safely in the next room. And for the first time in years, Julie Henderson felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 6 weeks passed quickly. Julie fell into a routine with Connor. She woke every 3 hours to feed him. She changed countless diapers. She walked him around the apartment when he was fussy. She sang to him and read to him and talked to him about everything and nothing. She had started working at Nashville Corner Cafe. Tom Wilson, the owner, had been everything Margaret promised and more. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s with a thick beard and a ready smile. When Julie showed up for her interview with Connor in a carrier, Tom didn't even blink. "Bring him to work with you until you find childcare," Tom said. "We'll set up a pack and play in the back office. The customers will love him." And they did. Connor became a fixture at the cafe. Regulars asked about him. They cooed over him. They left extra big tips for Connor's college fund. Nobody seemed bothered by his birthmark. Or if they were, they kept it to themselves. Amy from the church had become a close friend. She came over twice a week with her toddler, Emma, and the two women talked about motherhood while their children played or slept. Amy never treated Julie like a project or charity case. She treated her like a friend. "You're doing great," Amy told her one afternoon as they watched Emma stack blocks while Connor dozed in his swing. "Seriously, Connor is thriving. You're working. You have a place to live. You should be proud of yourself." "I didn't do any of this alone," Julie said quietly. "Everyone else did it for me." "No. Everyone else gave you tools. You're the one using them. There's a difference." Amy squeezed her shoulder. "Don't sell yourself short, Julie." Now, standing outside the medical office building in downtown Nashville, Julie felt her stomach twist with nerves. Today was Connor's first appointment with Dr. Stevens. He had flown in from Portland specifically for this consultation. Dr. Walsh would be there too. Julie pushed Connor's stroller through the glass doors and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The office was modern and clean, with colorful murals on the walls and a play area for kids. But Connor was the youngest patient in the waiting room by far. Julie Henderson. A nurse called her back. The exam room was warm and welcoming. Children's books lined one wall. There were toys in a basket. But Julie only had eyes for the man who stood when she entered. Dr. Michael Stevens was tall and thin, with wire-rimmed glasses and graying hair. He smiled warmly and reached out to shake her hand. "Julie, I'm so glad to finally meet you in person. And this must be Connor." He leaned over the stroller. "Hello there, buddy." Connor was awake, his blue eyes bright and curious. The birthmark covering the left side of his face had darkened slightly in the past weeks, just as Dr. Walsh had predicted. But he had grown. He was stronger. He smiled now, real social smiles that made Julie's heart melt every time. Dr. Walsh entered next, carrying a file. "How are you doing, Julie? How's he been eating and sleeping?" "Good. He's up to 12 pounds. He eats every 3 hours like clockwork. And he's starting to sleep longer stretches at night." "Perfect." Dr. Stevens put on gloves and gently lifted Connor from the stroller. He examined him carefully, measuring the birthmark with a special tool, taking photographs from different angles, checking Connor's eyes thoroughly. "The port wine stain covers approximately 58% of his face," Dr. Stevens narrated, likely for Dr. Walsh's benefit. "It extends into the left eye area, which puts him at risk for glaucoma. We'll need regular eye exams to monitor that. The texture is already starting to become nodular, which is expected. But the good news is, he's young. His skin will respond beautifully to treatment." He turned to Julie. "Have you ever seen laser treatment performed?" "No." Julie's voice was small. "Let me explain how it works." Dr. Stevens sat down, still holding Connor, who seemed perfectly content. "We use a specialized laser that targets the extra blood vessels causing the birthmark. The laser heats up those vessels and destroys them, which makes the birthmark lighter and flatter. Connor's skin will absorb the destroyed vessels over time." "Does it hurt?" Julie hated asking, But she had to know. We use topical anesthetic and cooling devices. Most babies cry because they don't like being held down, not because of pain. And each treatment only takes about 15 to 20 minutes. Connor will be fine within an hour afterward. He pulled up images on his computer, showing before and after photos of other babies he had treated. The transformations were remarkable. Birthmarks that had once covered entire faces were reduced to light pink patches. Some were barely visible at all. This is what we're aiming for with Connor. I can't promise the birthmark will disappear completely, but I can promise significant improvement. Maybe 70 to 80% reduction. Maybe more if we're lucky. Julie stared at the images. He could look normal. He looks normal now, Dr. Stevens said gently. But yes, the birthmark will be much less noticeable. He'll still have some discoloration, probably, but nothing like what he has now. When do we start? Julie's voice shook. Today, if you're ready. I have my equipment here. I cleared my schedule specifically for Connor. We can do his first treatment right now, and then schedule the next one for 6 weeks from today. Julie looked at Dr. Walsh, who nodded encouragingly. It's the best option, Julie. The earlier we start, the better the results. Okay. Julie took a deep breath. Let's do it. They moved to a treatment room. It looked medical but not frightening. Dr. Stevens explained every step. He applied numbing cream to Connor's face and let it sit for 30 minutes. Then he used a cooling device that blew cold air on Connor's skin during the treatment. Ready. Dr. Stevens positioned the laser. You can hold his hands if you want. Julie stood beside the table, gripping Connor's tiny fingers. He was looking up at her, trusting her completely. When the laser started, Connor flinched at the first pulse. Then he started crying. Not screaming, but crying steadily, his face red with distress. Julie wanted to stop it. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to grab her baby and run. But she forced herself to stay calm, to talk to Connor in a soothing voice, to let him know she was there. You're doing so good, sweetheart. It's almost over. Mama's here. You're so brave. 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. But finally, Dr. Stevens turned off the laser. All done. Connor's crying stopped almost immediately. His face was red and swollen where the laser had hit, but Dr. Stevens applied cooling gel and wrapped ice packs in soft cloth against his skin. He'll be puffy for a few days, Dr. Stevens explained. You might see some bruising or crusting. That's all normal. Keep the area clean and dry. Apply the ointment I'm going to give you 3 times a day. And call me if you see any signs of infection. He handed Connor back to Julie, who cradled him close. Connor nuzzled against her chest, exhausted from crying. Within minutes, he was asleep. You did great, Dr. Walsh said, squeezing Julie's shoulder. I know that was hard to watch. Will it work? Julie looked down at Connor's swollen face. Can you tell? Not yet. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to see results. The birthmark will actually look worse for a few weeks as the treated vessels break down. But then it will start to fade. Trust the process. Dr. Stevens wrote out prescriptions and instructions. I'll be back in 6 weeks for the next treatment. In the meantime, Dr. Walsh will monitor his progress. Before they left, Dr. Stevens pulled Julie aside. I want you to know something. Connor's case is special. I've treated hundreds of port wine stains in my career. But the combination of his age, the extent of the birthmark, and how early we're starting treatment, I think we're going to see incredible results. This could be a landmark case. Thank you for trusting me with your son. Thank you for giving him a chance at a normal life. Julie's eyes filled with tears. I'll never be able to repay you. You don't need to. Just take good care of him. And maybe, someday, help another mother who's where you were 6 weeks ago. That's payment enough. Julie took Connor home and spent the rest of the day holding him while he slept off the treatment. His face was swollen and red. She could see the pattern of the laser treatment, squares of darker skin where the laser had targeted the birthmark. It looked worse than before, and Julie had to remind herself that Dr. Stevens said this was normal. That evening, Tom stopped by with dinner from the cafe. Heard Connor had his first treatment today. Thought you might not feel like cooking. You didn't have to do that. Julie accepted the food gratefully. But thank you. Tom looked at Connor sleeping in his swing. How'd it go? Hard. But Dr. Stevens says it'll work. We just have to wait and see. Julie unpacked the food, her stomach growling. She realized she hadn't eaten all day. Tom, can I ask you something? Why have you been so good to me? You don't even know me. Tom sat at her kitchen table, his big hands folded in front of him. I know you're a good mother doing your best. That's all I need to know. And between you and me, I like seeing my customers rally around someone. Makes me remember why I opened a restaurant in the first place. It's not about food. It's about community. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. My son Andrew will be working the morning shift starting next week. He's been managing my other location. If you need anything at all, you can ask him. He's a good kid. After Tom left, Julie ate her dinner while watching Connor sleep. The swelling was already starting to go down. She took pictures on her phone, documenting the process just like Dr. Stevens had asked her to. She sent one picture to Patricia, who texted back immediately. You're doing great, Mama. Connor is lucky to have you. Keep me posted on how he heals. Over the next few days, Connor's face went through changes. The swelling decreased. Some areas bruised dark purple. The birthmark looked angrier and darker than before. Julie had to stop herself from panicking, from thinking she had made a mistake. But then, about 2 weeks after the treatment, she noticed something. In certain lights, the very edges of the birthmark looked lighter. Not much, but enough to give her hope. At 3 weeks, Amy came over and gasped when she saw Connor. Julie, look at his forehead. It's fading. Julie held Connor up to the window, examining his face in natural light. Amy was right. The birthmark on Connor's forehead, where it had once been deep purple, was now more of a reddish pink. It was working. By week 6, when it was time for the second treatment, Julie could see definite improvement. The birthmark was still prominent, still covering much of Connor's face. But it was lighter, flatter, less textured. And most importantly, Connor's left eye, which had been partially obscured by raised skin, was now fully visible. Dr. Stevens was thrilled. This is exactly what we want to see. Better than I expected, honestly. Connor is responding beautifully to treatment. Ready for round 2. This time, Julie was prepared. She knew what to expect. Connor still cried during the treatment, but Julie stayed calm, talking him through it, promising him it would be over soon. And as they left the medical building that day, Connor asleep in his stroller, Julie felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Not just in Connor for being so brave, but in herself. For fighting for him. For accepting help. For trusting the process. For believing that things could get better. She was right to believe. Because with each treatment, Connor's future was getting brighter. 3 months had passed since Connor's birth. Julie stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting her navy uniform shirt for work. In the living room, Connor was on his playmat, batting at the colorful toys hanging above him. His birthmark had faded considerably after 2 laser treatments. What had once been deep purple was now a light reddish pink, and the texture had flattened significantly. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Julie worked 4 shifts a week at Nashville Corner Cafe, bringing home enough in tips to cover her expenses. Connor stayed with Amy on the days Julie worked, an arrangement that helped both mothers. The women had become genuine friends, sharing the ups and downs of parenthood over coffee and baby food. Someone's happy today, Julie said, kneeling beside Connor's mat. He gave her a gummy smile and kicked his legs excitedly. At 3 months, he was developing a personality. He laughed at funny faces. He recognized voices. And he loved music, quieting immediately whenever Julie sang to him. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Morning rush is crazy. Can you come in 30 minutes early? Julie texted back a confirmation, then bundled Connor into his carrier. The walk to Amy's apartment took only 5 minutes. Amy answered the door with Emma on her hip, both of them still in pajamas. Good morning, sunshine. Amy took Connor's carrier. Emma has been asking about Connor since she woke up. I think she has a little crush. She can do better, Julie joked, but her voice was warm. I'll pick him up by 3. Take your time. We're just going to the park later. Julie walked to work through downtown Nashville, breathing in the cool October air. The trees were starting to change colors, and the city had a golden quality in the morning light. She had lived here for 3 years, but this was the first time Nashville felt like home. The Corner Cafe was packed when she arrived. Tom was behind the counter, working the espresso machine while managing the register. He looked relieved when he saw Julie. Thank goodness. We're down one server. Amanda called in sick. He handed her an apron. Table 6 has been waiting 10 minutes. Can you start there? Julie jumped into the rush, taking orders, delivering food, refilling coffee cups. She had gotten good at this job. Better than she thought she would. She remembered orders without writing them down. She anticipated what customers needed before they asked. And her tips reflected it. You're natural, Tom told her during a brief lull. I'm glad Margaret sent you my way. I'm glad too. Julie wiped down the counter. This job saved me, Tom. You know that. You saved yourself. Tom's voice was gruff but kind. I just gave you an opportunity. You did the rest. The morning shift flew by. Around noon, a young man came through the kitchen door carrying supplies. He was tall and lean, with dark hair and brown eyes. He wore jeans and a cafe t-shirt, and he moved with easy confidence. Dad, where do you want these? He set down boxes of paper cups. Stockroom is fine. Andrew, have you met Julie yet? Tom gestured her over. Julie, this is my son Andrew. He's been managing my other location, but I'm bringing him here more often. Hi. Andrew extended his hand. I've heard a lot about you and Connor. Julie shook his hand, noting his firm grip and friendly smile. All good things, I hope. All good things, Andrew confirmed. Dad says you're the best server he's ever had. High praise from him. Don't let it go to your head, Tom grumbled, but he was smiling. Andrew, can you cover the register for a bit? I need to make a phone call. As Tom disappeared into the office, Andrew took his place behind the counter. Julie went back to her tables, but she was aware of Andrew's presence. He was easy with customers, joking with regulars and charming newcomers. He reminded her of his father in the way he made everyone feel welcome. During her break, Julie sat in the back room checking her phone. There were pictures from Amy showing Connor and Emma at the park. Connor looked happy, his face turned toward the sun. The birthmark was visible but not shocking anymore. Just part of who he was. Your son is cute. Andrew appeared in the doorway. Sorry, I saw the picture over your shoulder. Didn't mean to intrude. It's okay. Julie showed him the photo. That's Connor. He's 3 months old. The birthmark is fading, right? Dad told me about the treatments. Andrew sat down across from her. That must have been scary for you at first. Terrifying. Julie tucked her phone away. But a lot of people helped us. Your dad included. I don't know where I'd be without this job. Well, I'm glad you're here. The customers love you. I've been watching the tip jar. You're making bank. Andrew grinned. Seriously though, if you ever need anything, let me know. Extra shifts, schedule changes, whatever. We take care of our people here. Over the next few weeks, Julie saw Andrew more frequently. He was training to take over more responsibilities at the Corner Cafe, which meant he was there during most of Julie's shifts. They fell into an easy camaraderie. He made her laugh with stories about difficult customers. She taught him her tricks for remembering orders. And slowly, carefully, they became friends. Andrew was careful never to overstep. He didn't ask about Connor's father. He didn't pry into Julie's past. He just treated her like a capable person who happened to work with him. It was refreshing. One Thursday afternoon, Andrew found Julie crying in the stockroom. Connor had had his 3rd laser treatment that morning, and while it had gone well, seeing him in pain always broke her heart. Hey, what's wrong? Andrew's voice was gentle. It's nothing. Just a hard morning with Connor's treatment. Julie wiped her eyes quickly. I'm fine. You don't have to be fine all the time. Andrew handed her a clean towel to dry her face. I can't imagine how hard this is for you, doing everything on your own. I'm not on my own anymore. Julie managed a weak smile. I have help. More help than I ever expected. Still, being a single parent is tough. My mom was a single parent for a while before she met my dad. I saw what she went through. Andrew leaned against the shelf. You're doing great, Julie. Better than great. You should be proud of yourself. Your dad says the same thing. Julie's voice was quiet. I'm trying to believe it. Believe it. Andrew smiled. Now, you have an hour left on your shift. Think you can handle it, or should I send you home early? I can handle it. Julie stood up straighter. I always do. That evening, after picking up Connor from Amy's, Julie got a text from an unfamiliar number. This is Andrew. Got your number from my dad's employee file. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to check on you and Connor. Julie stared at the text for a long moment before responding. We're good. Thanks for checking. Glad to hear it. See you tomorrow at work. That night, as Julie rocked Connor to sleep, she thought about Andrew's kindness. It had been so long since anyone her age had been nice to her without expecting something in return. Boys her age had always wanted one thing. But Andrew seemed different. He seemed genuine. What do you think, Connor? She whispered to her sleeping son. Should Mama let her guard down a little bit? Connor's answer was a soft snore, his face peaceful in sleep. The birthmark that had once covered more than half his face was now a light pink patch. By the time he was a year old, Dr. Stevens predicted it would be barely noticeable. Julie's phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Margaret. Women's Bible study tomorrow night at church. You should come. Amy will be there. We'd love to see you. Julie had been to church a few times since moving into the apartment. She wasn't sure what she believed about God or faith. But she believed in the people at Community Baptist. They had shown her more love in 3 months than she had experienced in her entire life. She texted back. I'll try to make it. Thanks for the invitation. As Julie got ready for bed, she looked around her apartment. The home that strangers had furnished. The job that Tom had given her. The friends who had embraced her. The doctors who had saved Connor's face. The community that had wrapped around her like a warm blanket. 6 months ago, she had been sleeping in a motel with nothing but fear and desperation. Now she had a home, a job, friends, hope, and a beautiful son who was getting healthier every day. Julie climbed into bed and pulled up the covers. Through the baby monitor, she could hear Connor's steady breathing. She closed her eyes and said a quiet thank you to whoever or whatever was listening. Thank you for the kindness of strangers. Thank you for second chances. Thank you for showing me that I'm not alone. And somewhere in the darkness, it felt like something or someone was listening. It felt like her gratitude was heard. It felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, and everything that had happened, all the pain and fear and struggle, had led her to this moment of peace. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More laser treatments. More shifts at work. More bills to pay. But tonight, Julie Henderson was content. Tonight, she had everything she needed. Tonight, she believed in hope again. Winter arrived in Nashville with crisp air and early sunsets. Julie stood outside the medical building, bundling Connor against the cold. At 6 months old, he was sitting up on his own, grabbing everything in reach, and babbling constantly. And his face had transformed. The port wine stain that had once covered more than half his face was now reduced to a light pink patch about the size of a quarter on his left cheek. His forehead was clear. His eye area was clear. The texture had completely flattened. When people looked at Connor now, they saw a beautiful baby first. The birthmark second, if they noticed it at all. Ready for treatment number 5. Dr. Walsh greeted them in the lobby. Dr. Stevens had flown in from Portland again, and the whole medical team was excited about Connor's progress. In the treatment room, Dr. Stevens pulled up Connor's before and after photos on his computer screen. Julie had seen them before, but they still took her breath away. The first photo showed a newborn with more than half his face covered in deep purple. The most recent photo showed a chubby 6-month-old with barely any birthmark visible. This is incredible, Julie. Dr. Stevens zoomed in on the images. Connor has responded better than any case I've ever treated. I'm estimating we'll only need 2 or 3 more treatments total. And even then, I might be able to reduce the birthmark to the point where it's nearly invisible. Really? Julie's voice cracked. You mean it could be gone? Not completely gone. There will always be slight discoloration. But with makeup when he's older, or even without it, most people won't notice anything unusual. Dr. Stevens smiled. Connor is going to have a normal childhood, Julie. No stares. No questions. Just a regular kid. Tears streamed down Julie's face. She had hoped for this. Prayed for it. But hearing it said out loud made it real. I don't know how to thank you. She looked between Dr. Stevens and Dr. Walsh. You both gave my son his life back. You gave him his life. Dr. Walsh corrected gently. You fought for him. You accepted help. You brought him to every appointment. You did everything right. The treatment went smoothly. Connor cried, but less than he had during previous sessions. Julie suspected he was getting used to the routine. Afterward, while they waited for the swelling to go down, Dr. Stevens took more detailed photographs for his research. I'm presenting Connor's case at a medical conference in Portland next month. He showed Julie the presentation slides. With your permission, I'd like to use his photos to demonstrate the effectiveness of early intervention. His case could change how we treat port wine stains in newborns. Of course. Julie didn't even have to think about it. If Connor's story can help other babies, you can share whatever you need. You're remarkable, Julie. Dr. Stevens packed up his equipment. When I first saw Connor's photos 6 months ago, I saw a desperate situation. Now I see a success story. And it's not just about the medical treatment. It's about a community that came together to support a mother and child. That's the real miracle here. After the appointment, Julie walked back to the cafe with Connor in his stroller. The lunch rush was starting, but Andrew was covering the front. He waved when he saw her through the window, then came outside. How'd it go? He crouched down to look at Connor, who immediately grabbed for Andrew's finger. Really well. Dr. Stevens says only 2 or 3 more treatments. Julie couldn't keep the happiness out of her voice. Andrew, his face is almost completely clear. That's incredible. Andrew stood, his hand resting briefly on Julie's shoulder. I'm really happy for you both. The gesture was casual, but Julie felt something spark at the touch. Over the past few months, Andrew had become more than just a coworker. He helped her with Connor when she brought him to work. He saved her favorite tables for her. He covered her shifts when she had medical appointments. And he made her laugh in a way she hadn't laughed in years. I should get Connor home for his nap, Julie said, suddenly aware of how close Andrew was standing. Right. Yeah. Andrew stepped back, running a hand through his hair. But hey, a bunch of us are going out for dinner tomorrow night. Just staff, celebrating the holidays. You should come. I don't know. Connor. Amy said she'd watch him. I already asked her. Andrew grinned. Come on, Julie. When's the last time you did something just for fun? Julie couldn't remember. Okay, I'll come. The next evening, Julie found herself at a casual Italian restaurant with Tom, Andrew, Amanda, and 2 other servers from the cafe. It felt strange to be out without Connor. Strange to wear jeans and a nice top instead of her uniform. Strange to have adult conversation that wasn't about babies or bills. Andrew had saved her a seat next to him. He was animated, telling stories that had everyone laughing. Tom watched his son with obvious pride, and Julie saw where Andrew got his warmth. The Wilson men knew how to make people feel valued. So Julie, Amanda leaned across the table. Spill. What's your story? We all know about Connor and how amazing his treatment is going. But what about before that? Where are you from? Julie tensed. She hated this question. Her past was full of foster homes, failed relationships, and bad decisions. But everyone was looking at her with friendly curiosity, not judgment. There's not much to tell. I grew up in the system. Foster care. Julie kept her voice steady. Never got adopted. Aged out at 18. Moved around a lot. Ended up in Nashville about 3 years ago. That must have been hard. Tom's voice was kind. What about Connor's father? Not in the picture. His choice. Julie took a sip of water. It's just me and Connor. But that's okay. We're doing fine. You're doing better than fine. Andrew caught her eye. You're killing it at work. Connor is thriving. You have friends. You have a home. That's not just fine. That's success. The kindness in his voice made Julie's throat tight. I couldn't have done any of it without help. From your dad, from Amy, from the church, from the doctors. Everyone stepped up. Because you were worth stepping up for. Amanda raised her glass. To Julie. For being brave enough to accept help and smart enough to use it well. Everyone clinked glasses. Julie blinked back tears. She had spent so long building walls, keeping people out, convinced she had to do everything alone. But these people had climbed over those walls and refused to leave. They had become her family. After dinner, Andrew walked Julie to her apartment. The night was cold, and their breath made clouds in the air. They walked in comfortable silence until they reached her building. Thanks for coming tonight. Andrew's hands were in his pockets. I know it's hard for you to leave Connor, but I'm glad you came. Me too. Julie smiled up at him. It was nice to remember I'm more than just a mom sometimes. You're a lot more. Andrew's voice was soft. You're smart and funny and strong. Connor is lucky to have you as his mom. But you're also just Julie. And Julie is pretty great. Julie's heart was hammering. Andrew. I know. This is probably not the right time. Andrew held up his hands. You're dealing with a lot. You're focused on Connor. I get that. But I needed you to know that I think you're amazing. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'd really like to take you on an actual date. Not just dinner with the staff. A real date. Julie looked at him, at his honest face and kind eyes. Every instinct told her to say no, to protect herself, to avoid getting hurt again. But standing here, looking at Andrew, she remembered what Dr. Walsh had told her months ago. That accepting help wasn't weakness. It was courage. Maybe accepting love wasn't weakness either. I'd like that. The words came out before Julie could stop them. A real date. When Connor's a little older and I'm not so overwhelmed. I'd really like that. Andrew's face lit up. Yeah. Julie smiled, and it felt like the first real smile she had given anyone in years. But take it slow, okay? I'm kind of a mess. You're not a mess. You're just figuring things out. Andrew leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. I can do slow. I'm patient. He walked away with a wave, and Julie stood outside her building watching him go. Inside her apartment, she could hear Connor crying through the baby monitor she had clipped to her pocket. Amy must have just put him down, and he was protesting. Julie hurried upstairs to relieve Amy and found Connor standing in his crib, holding the rails, tears streaming down his face. But when he saw Julie, he stopped crying and reached for her with both hands. Mama. It wasn't his first word officially, but it was close enough. Julie's heart melted as she picked him up. I'm here, sweetheart. Mama's here. She settled into the rocking chair, and Connor nuzzled against her chest, his breathing already evening out. Julie looked down at his face, at the nearly invisible birthmark, at his long eyelashes and rosy cheeks. He was perfect. You know what, Connor? She whispered. I think we're going to be okay. Better than okay. I think we're going to be happy. Connor's hand found her finger and gripped it tightly, as if to say he agreed. And as Julie rocked him to sleep, she let herself imagine a future she had never dared to dream about. A future with friends, with community, with possibility, maybe even with love. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still laser treatments to complete, bills to pay, challenges to face. But for the first time since Connor was born, Julie wasn't facing those challenges alone. She had people in her corner, people who cared, people who believed in her. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe in herself too. Spring arrived in Nashville with blooming flowers and warmer days. Connor, now 11 months old, was crawling everywhere and pulling himself up on furniture. His personality had fully emerged. He was curious, fearless, and had the most infectious laugh Julie had ever heard. And his birthmark was barely visible, just a faint pink shadow on his left cheek that you had to look closely to notice. Julie stood in the hospital lobby, but this time she wasn't there for Connor's treatment. She was there as a volunteer. Dr. Walsh had asked her to speak at a support group for parents of children with port wine stains and other facial differences. You nervous? Dr. Walsh appeared beside her, carrying a folder. Terrified. Julie admitted. I'm not good at public speaking. You don't have to be good. You just have to be honest. Dr. Walsh led her to a conference room. These parents need to hear from someone who's been where they are. Someone who can give them hope. The room was full. About 20 parents sat in chairs arranged in a circle, some holding babies, some with toddlers playing on the floor. They all looked exhausted, worried, scared. Julie recognized that look. She had worn it herself not long ago. Dr. Walsh introduced her. This is Julie Henderson and her son Connor. A year ago, Julie rushed into our emergency room with no insurance and no idea how she would afford care for her son. Connor was born with one of the most extensive port wine stains I've seen in my career. Today, I'll let Julie tell you what happened next. Julie took a deep breath and began. She told them about the terrifying delivery, about begging doctors not to give up on Connor, about Dr. Walsh connecting her with Dr. Stevens, about the community that had rallied around them, about accepting help even when it felt impossible. She showed them before and after photos on her phone. The gasps in the room were audible. Connor's transformation was remarkable. I won't lie to you, Julie said, looking at each parent in turn. It was hard. The treatments were hard to watch. The waiting was hard. The uncertainty was hard. But it was worth it. Every single second of it was worth it. A woman in the back raised her hand. What if we can't afford treatment? My daughter has a birthmark similar to what your son had. But we don't have insurance. We don't have money. Neither did I. Julie's voice was firm. I had $17 in my pocket when I went into labor. But there are programs, grants, research studies. Hospitals have charity care. Churches have benevolence funds. You have to ask for help. I know it's hard. I know it feels like giving up. But accepting help is the bravest thing I ever did. Another mother spoke up. What do you say to people who stay? My son is 2, and people stare at him all the time. Julie thought about this. I hold my head high. I look them in the eye. And if they ask, I answer honestly. My son has a port wine stain. He's getting treatment for it. He's perfect exactly as he is. Most people are just curious. Some are rude. But Connor doesn't know the difference yet. And by the time he's old enough to notice, his birthmark will be barely visible. After the meeting, several parents approached Julie with questions. She exchanged phone numbers with 3 mothers, promising to be available if they needed to talk. Dr. Walsh watched from across the room, smiling. As Julie was leaving, a young woman stopped her in the hallway. She was holding a tiny baby, maybe 6 weeks old. The baby had a port wine stain covering her entire left cheek and eye. I saw your son's story online almost a year ago, the woman said quietly. The post that nurse shared. I was pregnant then, and I saw the birthmark on my baby's ultrasound. I was so scared. But your story gave me hope. I want you to know that. Julie looked at the baby, seeing Connor's face from a year ago reflected back at her. What's her name? Sophia. Sophia is beautiful. Julie touched the baby's tiny hand. Are you getting her treated? Yes. Dr. Stevens is taking her case. First treatment is next month. The woman's eyes filled with tears. I can't believe this is real. That help is available. That strangers care enough to help my baby. They do. Julie squeezed her shoulder. And you're going to be okay. Sophia is going to be okay. Trust me. Walking back to her apartment, Connor strapped to her chest in a baby carrier. Julie felt something shift inside her. For months, she had been on the receiving end of kindness. People had helped her, supported her, lifted her up when she couldn't stand on her own. Now it was her turn to help others. That evening, Andrew came over with takeout. They had been dating officially for 2 months now, taking things slow just like Julie had asked. He was patient and kind, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. And he adored Connor, which made Julie's heart melt every time she saw them together. How'd it go at the hospital? Andrew set food on the counter while Connor crawled toward him, babbling excitedly. It was good. Really good actually. Julie picked up Connor and settled him in his high chair with some soft food. I didn't realize how much I needed to tell my story, to help other parents. You're a natural helper. Andrew leaned against the counter. I've watched you at work. You go out of your way for people. It's one of the things I love about you. Julie froze. It was the first time Andrew had used the word love, even casually. He seemed to realize it too, because his face flushed. I mean, one of the things I really like about you. He corrected quickly. Sorry, too soon. No. Julie crossed to him and took his hand. Not too soon. It's actually kind of perfect timing. She kissed him then, a real kiss, not the gentle pecks they had shared before. Andrew's arms came around her, and for a moment, everything else faded away. There was just this feeling of safety, of being seen, of being valued. Connor banged his hands on his high chair tray, breaking the moment. They pulled apart, laughing. Someone's jealous. Andrew tickled Connor's belly, making him giggle. Don't worry, buddy. I'm not stealing your mom. But as they ate dinner together, the three of them, Julie realized something. This was what family felt like. Not biology. Not paperwork. Just people choosing to love each other and show up for each other every single day. The next week, Margaret called Julie with an opportunity. The church is hosting a community dinner next month. We want to share stories of how people were helped and how they are paying it forward. Would you be willing to speak? Julie agreed without hesitation. The dinner was held in the church's fellowship hall, attended by more than 100 people. Tom and Andrew were there. Amy and her family. Dr. Walsh. Nurse Patricia. And dozens of others who had been part of Julie's journey. When it was her turn to speak, Julie walked to the front with Connor on her hip. He was wearing a blue shirt, and his birthmark was so faded that under the hall lights, it was invisible. A year ago, I was sleeping in a motel with $17 to my name. Julie's voice carried through the room. I was pregnant, alone, and terrified. When my son was born with a birthmark covering more than half his face, I thought my worst fears were coming true. I didn't know how I would pay for treatment. I didn't know how I would give him a normal life. She paused, looking at all the faces watching her. Faces that had become familiar. Faces of friends. Then something incredible happened. This community showed up for us. Dr. Walsh found a specialist. The hospital covered our bills. Margaret and the church got us an apartment. Tom gave me a job. Patricia shared our story. Strangers from across the country sent money and supplies and prayers. And slowly, impossibly, our life changed. Julie held up Connor, so everyone could see his face. This is Connor today. His birthmark is almost gone. He's healthy and happy. But more importantly, I'm healthy and happy. Because you all taught me that accepting help isn't weakness. That community matters. That love is real. She set Connor down, and he immediately crawled toward Tom, who picked him up with a laugh. I'm speaking here tonight because I want other people to know what I learned. If you're struggling, ask for help. If someone offers help, take it. Don't let pride or fear keep you from accepting the kindness of others. And when you're in a position to help someone else, do it without expecting anything in return. That's how we change the world. One act of kindness at a time. The room erupted in applause. People stood. Connor, startled by the noise, started to cry, and Tom handed him back to Julie. She comforted him while accepting hugs and handshakes from what felt like everyone in the room. Later, back at her apartment with Andrew and Connor, Julie felt exhausted but fulfilled. She had spent so long feeling worthless, like she had nothing to offer the world. But tonight, she had realized something profound. Her story mattered. Her struggle mattered. And by sharing it, she had given hope to others who were walking the same dark path she had walked. You were amazing tonight. Andrew was building a tower out of blocks for Connor, who kept knocking it down with delight. Everyone was crying. I cried the whole time too. Julie admitted. But good tears. Grateful tears. You know what I love about you. Andrew looked up at her. And yes, I'm using that word again. I love how you never give up. Even when things were at their worst, you fought. For Connor. For yourself. For a better life. That's incredible. I had a lot of help. Julie sat beside him on the floor. I couldn't have done any of it alone. No one should have to do anything alone. That's the point. Andrew reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. We're better together. Connor chose that moment to crawl into Andrew's lap, yawning hugely. Andrew cradled him like he was the most precious thing in the world, and Julie's heart swelled. I think someone's ready for bed. She stood and took Connor from Andrew. Want to help with bedtime? It was a big step, inviting Andrew into this intimate routine. But as they worked together to give Connor a bath, put him in pajamas, and read him a story, it felt natural. It felt right. After Connor was asleep, they stood in the doorway of his room, watching him breathe steadily in his crib. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Andrew's voice was quiet. I know it's not easy for you to trust people. You make it easy. Julie leaned against him. You've been patient with me. With us. You've never pushed for more than I could give. That means everything. I'd wait forever if I had to. Andrew kissed the top of her head. You and Connor are worth waiting for. As they moved to the living room, Julie realized she wasn't waiting anymore. She was ready. Ready to trust. Ready to love. Ready to build a life that included more than just survival. The future was full of possibilities now. Connor would have one more laser treatment. Julie was considering going back to school. Andrew had hinted at wanting to get serious about their relationship. And every day brought new opportunities to help others the way she had been helped. A year ago, Julie Henderson had been at the lowest point of her life. But from that low point, with the help of countless generous souls, she had built something beautiful. Not just a life, but a home, a community, a future filled with hope. And that was more than she had ever dared to dream possible. Connor's first birthday party was held at Nashville Corner Cafe on a Sunday afternoon when the restaurant was closed to regular customers. Tom had insisted on hosting, and the turnout was overwhelming. Amy and her family were there. Margaret and several people from the church. Dr. Walsh and Nurse Patricia. Even Dr. Stevens had flown in from Portland specifically for the occasion. Julie stood back, watching everyone fuss over Connor, and felt her eyes well up with emotion. A year ago, she had been alone in a hospital room, terrified about her future. Now she was surrounded by people who had become her family. Connor, wearing a tiny bow tie and sitting in his high chair, had no idea what all the fuss was about. But when Tom brought out a small cake with one candle, Connor's eyes lit up. Everyone sang happy birthday while Julie helped him blow out the candle. Make a wish, little man. Andrew whispered, standing close beside Julie. I already got my wish. Julie looked around the room. All of this. All of you. This is more than I ever wished for. After cake and presents, which included enough toys to fill Connor's entire apartment, people started to filter out. Dr. Stevens pulled Julie aside before he left. I wanted to show you something before I fly back. He pulled out his phone and opened a presentation. Remember when I told you I was presenting Connor's case at a medical conference? Yes. Julie nodded, bouncing Connor on her hip. Well, the presentation went viral in the medical community. I've had dozens of doctors reach out asking about my techniques. But more importantly, I've had hundreds of parents contact me about their own children. Parents who didn't know treatment was available. Parents who thought they had no options. Dr. Stevens smiled. Connor's story is changing how we approach port wine stains. It's raising awareness, giving hope. Because of Connor. Julie looked down at her son, who was trying to grab Dr. Stevens' phone. Because of you. Dr. Stevens corrected. Because you were willing to share your story. Because you let us document Connor's treatment. Because you spoke at support groups and church dinners. You started a ripple effect, Julie. And it's going to help thousands of children. After Dr. Stevens left, Julie found herself alone with Andrew in the empty cafe. Tom had taken Connor to the back office to let him play with some pots and pans, claiming he needed some grandpa time. Which wasn't quite accurate since Tom wasn't Connor's grandfather, but he might as well have been. Can we talk? Andrew's voice was serious. There's something I've been wanting to say. Julie's heart started racing. Okay. They sat in a booth, the same booth where Julie had served Andrew coffee 100 times over the past year. Where he had made her laugh during difficult shifts. Where they had first become friends before becoming something more. I love you. Andrew said simply. I'm in love with you, Julie. I have been for months. And I love Connor like he's my own son. I know we agreed to take things slow, and we have. But I need you to know how I feel. Julie's breath caught. Andrew. Wait, let me finish. He took her hands. I know you've been hurt. I know you have trust issues. I know you're still figuring out who you are and what you want. And I'm not asking you to have all the answers right now. I just need you to know that I'm all in. Whatever pace you need to go, I'm here. If you need more time, I'll wait. If you're ready to move forward, I'm ready too. Julie looked at him, at his honest face and patient eyes. Andrew had shown up for her in ways no one ever had. He had been there through Connor's treatments, holding her hand when she cried. He had covered her shifts when she was exhausted. He had brought them dinner on hard nights. He had played with Connor, making her son laugh with silly faces and funny voices. He had never asked for anything in return. Never pushed for more than she was ready to give. Never made her feel like she owed him anything. That was how Julie knew it was real. I love you too. The words came out stronger than she expected. I've been scared to say it, scared to trust it. But Andrew, I love you. And Connor loves you. You've become part of our family without even trying. Andrew's face lit up with the biggest smile she had ever seen. Yeah. Yeah. Julie laughed, tears streaming down her face. I'm ready to move forward. Whatever that looks like. I want you in our life. Not just as my boyfriend, but as a real partner. A real part of Connor's life. Andrew leaned across the table and kissed her, a kiss full of promise and hope and all the tomorrows they would face together. When they pulled apart, Tom was standing in the doorway with Connor on his hip, a knowing smile on his face. About time you two figured it out. Tom said gruffly. I've been waiting months for this. You knew? Julie asked. Of course I knew. A father knows when his son is in love. Tom brought Connor over. And Connor here knows too. Look how excited he is. Connor was indeed bouncing in Tom's arms, reaching for Andrew with both hands. Andrew took him and lifted him high, making Connor squeal with delight. What do you say, buddy? Should I stick around? Andrew asked Connor. Connor's answer was to grab Andrew's face with both hands and plant a sloppy baby kiss on his cheek. Everyone laughed. Over the next few months, Julie's relationship with Andrew deepened. He spent most evenings at her apartment, helping with Connor's bedtime routine, cooking dinner, just being present. On Julie's days off, they did things as a family. They took Connor to the park. They visited the zoo. They had picnics by the river. Andrew never tried to replace Connor's biological father. He understood that he was coming into an established family, and he respected that. But he also stepped into the role of father figure naturally, without hesitation. When Connor took his first steps, Andrew was there, arms outstretched, encouraging him. When Connor said Dada for the first time while looking at Andrew, both Andrew and Julie cried. It didn't matter that they weren't related by blood. What mattered was love. Julie also continued her volunteer work. She spoke at 2 more support groups for parents. She started a small online group where mothers of children with birthmarks could connect and share resources. And she worked with Dr. Walsh to develop better communication materials for families entering treatment. You found your calling. Amy told her one afternoon while they watched their children play. Emma was now 3, and she treated Connor like her little brother. You're making a real difference. I'm just sharing my story. Julie said. Nothing special. It is special. Amy insisted. Not everyone who receives help turns around and helps others. But you do. Constantly. That's who you are, Julie. One evening in December, almost 18 months after Connor's birth, Andrew asked Julie and Connor to come to his apartment for dinner. Tom would be there too, he said. Just a small family dinner. When they arrived, the apartment was decorated with candles and flowers. The dining table was set beautifully. And both Tom and Andrew were dressed nicer than usual. What's going on? Julie asked suspiciously. Sit down. Andrew pulled out a chair for her. Dinner first. They ate Tom's famous lasagna while Connor sat in his high chair, making a mess of his cut-up pasta. The conversation was light, but Julie could sense something was different. Andrew kept glancing at his father, who kept nodding encouragingly. After dinner, Tom took Connor to the living room to play, leaving Andrew and Julie alone at the table. Julie. Andrew took her hands. The past year and a half have been the best of my life. Watching you grow from someone who was scared to accept help into someone who constantly helps others has been incredible. Watching Connor grow from a tiny baby into this amazing little boy has been a privilege. And falling in love with both of you has been the easiest thing I've ever done. He slid off his chair and got down on one knee. Julie's hands flew to her mouth. I know we haven't been together that long. I know you might think this is too fast. But Julie, I'm sure about this. I'm sure about you. I'm sure about us. Andrew pulled out a small box. Will you marry me? Julie couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what was happening. Andrew waited patiently, still on his knee. The ring box opened to show a simple but beautiful diamond ring. From the living room, Tom called out, Say yes, Julie. Put the boy out of his misery. That broke the spell. Julie started laughing and crying at the same time. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Andrew slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. They kissed while Tom cheered and Connor clapped his hands, not understanding what was happening but excited by the energy in the room. I promise you. Andrew whispered against her hair. I'll love you and Connor for the rest of my life. I'll be the partner you deserve, the father he needs. I'll never let you feel alone again. I know. Julie pulled back to look at him. That's why I said yes. Tom brought out champagne to celebrate, and they toasted to the future. To family, to love, to second chances and new beginnings. Connor fell asleep in Andrew's arms before the champagne was finished, and Andrew carried him to the car with such tenderness that Julie fell in love with him all over again. That night, after putting Connor to bed in his crib, Julie sat in the rocking chair and stared at the ring on her finger. It caught the light from the nightlight, sparkling softly. She thought about the journey that had led her here, the fear, the struggle, the moments when she thought she couldn't go on. But she had gone on, with help, with support, with a community that had lifted her up when she couldn't stand on her own. And now she was here, engaged to a man who loved her and her son completely, living in a safe home, working a good job, surrounded by friends who had become family. Connor stirred in his sleep, and Julie reached over to adjust his blanket. His face was peaceful, the tiny birthmark on his cheek barely visible even in the dim light. Tomorrow he would have his final laser treatment. After that, Dr. Stevens said they were done. The birthmark would continue to fade on its own over the next few years, but no more treatments were needed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. I love you. Can't wait to marry you. Can't wait to officially be Connor's dad. Sweet dreams. Julie typed back. I love you too. Thank you for choosing us. I'll choose you every day for the rest of my life. He responded immediately. Julie set her phone down and closed her eyes, rocking gently in the chair. She had learned so much over the past year and a half. About kindness. About community. About accepting help. About giving back. But most importantly, she had learned about love. Real love wasn't just romantic feelings. It was showing up. It was being present. It was choosing someone every single day, even when it was hard. It was accepting people at their worst and celebrating them at their best. That was what Andrew had done for her. That was what her community had done for her. And that was what she would do for them, and for anyone else who needed it, for the rest of her life. The future stretched out before her, full of possibility. A wedding to plan. A marriage to build. A son to raise. And countless opportunities to pay forward the kindness that had saved her life. Julie Henderson had started with nothing. But through the generosity of strangers who became friends, she had everything. And she would never take that for granted. Not for a single moment. The spring morning was perfect for a wedding. The sun shone through scattered clouds, and a warm breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers through Community Baptist Church. Julie stood in a small room off the main sanctuary, staring at herself in the full-length mirror. She wore a simple but elegant white dress that Amy had helped her pick out. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and she wore minimal makeup. She didn't need much. Happiness had transformed her face over the past 2 years, giving her a natural glow that no cosmetics could replicate. Margaret bustled in with Connor, who was dressed in a tiny suit that made him look impossibly cute. At 2 years old, he was talking in full sentences, running everywhere, and getting into everything. And his birthmark was completely gone. Even Dr. Stevens had been amazed by the final results. What had once covered more than half his face was now just the faintest pink shadow that was only visible in certain lights. "Mama pretty," Connor announced, reaching for Julie. "Thank you, sweetheart." Julie picked him up carefully, trying not to wrinkle her dress. "Are you ready to walk Mama down the aisle?" Connor had insisted on this role when Andrew asked him if it was okay to marry his mama. "I walk Mama," Connor had declared. "I big boy." And so the plan was for Connor to walk Julie down the aisle. If he got distracted or scared, Tom would be there to help. But Julie had a feeling Connor would do just fine. Amy entered, wearing a blue bridesmaid dress and carrying a bouquet. "It's almost time. Everyone's seated. Andrew looks like he's about to pass out from excitement." "Is Dr. Walsh and Patricia?" Julie asked. "Front row. And Dr. Stevens flew in from Portland. He's sitting with them." "Oh, and Julie, I have to tell you, the church is packed. Everyone came." Julie's eyes filled with tears. "Don't make me cry. I just put on makeup." "Too late." Amy was crying too. "I'm just so happy for you. You deserve this. You deserve all of it." There was a soft knock, and Tom poked his head in. "We're ready when you are." Julie took a deep breath, set Connor down, and took his small hand. "Let's do this, buddy." The church was indeed packed. Every pew was full. Julie saw faces she recognized and faces she didn't. People from the cafe. People from the church. Medical staff from the hospital. Parents from her support groups. The couple from Boston who had helped pay for Connor's treatment. Families whose children had birthmarks, who had heard Julie speak and found hope in her story. The music started. Amy walked down the aisle first. Then it was Julie and Connor's turn. Connor held Julie's hand tightly as they walked. He didn't run. He didn't get distracted. He walked slowly, carefully, like he understood how important this moment was. When they reached the front, Connor looked up at Andrew and announced loudly, "I bring Mama." The church erupted in laughter. Andrew crouched down to Connor's level. "Thank you, buddy. I'll take good care of her." "You be my daddy now?" Connor asked. "I'll be your daddy forever." Andrew promised. Connor considered this, then nodded seriously. "Okay." He went to sit with Tom in the front row, and the ceremony began. Julie barely heard the words the pastor said. She was too focused on Andrew's face, on the love and promise she saw there. When it came time for vows, Andrew went first. "Julie, 2 years ago, you walked into my dad's cafe looking for a job. You had just had Connor. You were exhausted and scared and had no idea how you were going to make it. But I saw something in you that day. I saw strength. I saw determination. I saw a mother who would do anything for her child." His voice cracked with emotion. "Watching you accept. The user wants me to continue from where I left off. I was in the middle of chapter 10, in Andrew's wedding vows. I need to continue the story, finish the wedding scene, and then wrap up the chapter with the complete circle theme, showing how Julie's life has come full circle, how she's helping others, and providing the happy ending. I need to make sure I reach approximately 1,000 words for this chapter and tie up all the loose ends. Help has been one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed. Watching you give that help back to others has been even more beautiful. You took the worst moment of your life and turned it into hope for hundreds of families." Andrew took her hands. "I promise to be your partner in everything, to support your dreams, to help you help others, to love Connor as my own son, to build a family with you built on kindness, honesty, and love. I choose you today, and I'll choose you every day for the rest of my life." Julie was crying openly now. When it was her turn, she took a steadying breath. "Andrew, I spent most of my life believing I had to do everything alone. I thought accepting help was weakness. I thought trusting people would only lead to pain. Then Connor was born, and I was forced to make a choice. stay closed off and watch my son suffer, or open myself up to kindness and risk getting hurt. She squeezed his hands. You taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. You've shown up for me and Connor every single day. You've never made me feel like a burden. You've celebrated my victories and supported me through challenges. You've loved my son like he's yours, because in your heart, he already is. Julie's voice grew stronger. I promise to be your partner, to trust you, to build a life with you that honors all the people who helped us get here, to raise Connor with you, and to never forget that the greatest gifts in life come from opening your heart to others. I love you, Andrew Wilson. Thank you for choosing us. There wasn't a dry eye in the church when the pastor pronounced them husband and wife. Andrew kissed Julie while everyone cheered. Connor jumped out of Tom's lap and ran to them, and Andrew scooped him up so all three of them were hugging together. The reception was held in the church fellowship hall, decorated with simple flowers and white lights. There was food, music, and dancing. Julie danced with Andrew, then with Tom, then with Connor, who stood on her feet while she swayed to the music. Dr. Walsh approached during a quiet moment. I have something to tell you. The hospital wants to create a new program. A resource center for families with children who have facial differences. We want to name it after Connor. The Connor Henderson Resource Center. Julie's hand flew to her mouth. Are you serious? Completely serious. You've raised so much awareness. You've helped so many families. We want to make it official. A place where families can get information about treatment options, financial assistance, support groups. Everything you wished you had known when Connor was born. Dr. Walsh smiled. Will you help us run it? As a paid position. Part-time. So you can still work at the cafe if you want. Yes. Julie didn't hesitate. Absolutely yes. The celebration continued late into the evening. People shared stories about Julie and Andrew, about Connor's transformation, about the community that had come together. Patricia stood up and reminded everyone about the day she had posted Connor's photo online, how it had gone viral, how it had changed everything. That post reached millions of people, Patricia said. But it only needed to reach one person to matter. It reached Julie. And through Julie, it's reached hundreds of other families. That's the power of sharing our stories. That's the power of community. As the night wound down, Julie found herself outside on the church steps with Andrew and Connor. Connor had fallen asleep against Andrew's shoulder, his little suit rumpled, his face peaceful. Can you believe this? Julie whispered. 2 years ago, I was in a motel room wondering how I would survive. Now I'm married to you. Connor is healthy. I have a job helping other families. We have a home, a community, a future. You did this. Andrew adjusted Connor so he could put his arm around Julie. You fought for it, every step of the way. We did it together. Julie corrected. Me, you, Connor, your dad, the church, the doctors, everyone. That's what I've learned. Nobody does anything alone. We need each other. A car pulled up and Richard and Helen Miller stepped out. The couple from Boston who had funded Connor's medical expenses. They had flown in for the wedding, and Julie had finally met them in person that morning. We're heading to our hotel, Helen said, approaching the steps. But we wanted to say goodbye first. Thank you for coming. Julie stood, and Helen pulled her into a warm hug. And thank you for everything you did for Connor. For us. It was our honor. Richard shook Andrew's hand. We lost our son, and we couldn't save him. But helping Connor, helping you, it gave us a way to turn our grief into something meaningful. You gave us that gift, Julie. We want to fund the resource center the hospital is creating. Helen added, whatever it needs. Equipment, staff, programs. We want to make sure every family has access to the help you found. Julie started crying again. Why are you all so kind? Why does everyone keep giving us so much? Because kindness creates more kindness. Helen smiled. You accepted help when you needed it. Now you're helping others. And those families will help others. It's a circle that never ends. That's how we change the world. After the Millers left, Julie and Andrew took Connor home to their new apartment. They had moved into a bigger place together a month ago, preparing for their marriage. Connor had his own room with walls painted soft blue and filled with toys and books. Andrew laid Connor in his bed while Julie changed out of her wedding dress. When she came into Connor's room in comfortable clothes, Andrew was sitting in the rocking chair, watching their son sleep. He's grown so much. Andrew's voice was quiet. I can barely remember what he looked like when I first met him. I have pictures. Julie sat on the arm of the chair. Sometimes I look at them to remind myself how far we've come. That tiny baby with a birthmark covering his face. So fragile. So vulnerable. And now look at him. Andrew gestured to Connor. Strong. Healthy. Happy. No different than any other kid his age. Because of so many people who refused to give up on him. Julie rested her head on Andrew's shoulder. I'll never forget that. Never take it for granted. They moved to their own bedroom, and as they got ready for bed, Andrew pulled Julie close. I know this isn't a traditional wedding night. We've been together a while. We're not in some fancy hotel. But Julie, I want you to know that I'm more happy right now than I've ever been in my life. Me too. Julie kissed him softly. This is perfect. You, me, Connor sleeping in the next room, our whole life ahead of us. What more could I want? The next morning, Julie woke to Connor jumping on the bed, yelling, Mama, Daddy, wake up. It was the first time he had called Andrew Daddy without prompting, and Andrew's face lit up with joy. They made breakfast together as a family, pancakes that Connor helped flip, making a mess of the kitchen, but laughing the whole time. After breakfast, they walked to the park, where they met Amy and her family. How does it feel to be Mrs. Wilson? Amy asked as they watched the kids play on the swings. Surreal. Amazing. Terrifying in the best way. Julie laughed. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and realize this was all a dream. It's not a dream. It's real life. Your real life. Amy squeezed her hand. You know what the best part is? You're just getting started. You have so much ahead of you. The resource center, raising Connor with Andrew, maybe more kids someday. Julie hadn't thought about more children. But as she watched Andrew push Connor on the swing, both of them laughing, she realized she wanted that. She wanted to grow their family. She wanted Connor to have siblings. She wanted to build a life so full of love that the lonely, scared girl she used to be would never recognize it. That evening, back at home, Julie logged into the online support group she had started. There were new posts from mothers asking questions, sharing fears, looking for hope. Julie read through them carefully, responding to each one with empathy and practical advice. One post stood out. My daughter was born yesterday with a port wine stain. I'm terrified. I don't have insurance. I don't know what to do. Please help. Julie typed her response slowly, putting all her experience and heart into the words. I was where you are 2 years ago. I understand your fear. But I want you to know something important. You are not alone. There is help available. There are doctors who specialize in this. There are grants and programs. There are communities ready to support you. Your daughter is beautiful exactly as she is, and with treatment, her birthmark can fade significantly. Don't give up. Ask for help. Accept help. Trust that there are good people in the world who want to see your daughter thrive. And when you're ready, when you're through this hard part, pay it forward. Help the next mother who's where you are now. That's how we create a world of kindness. Message me directly. I'll help you find resources. You've got this, Mama. She hit send and closed her laptop. Andrew was giving Connor a bath, and she could hear them laughing from the bathroom. Connor was singing some made-up song about bubbles, while Andrew provided silly sound effects. Julie walked to the bathroom doorway and leaned against the frame, watching her family. Her husband. Her son. Her life. 2 years ago, she had stood in a hospital room begging doctors not to give up on her baby. She had $17, no insurance, and no hope. But she had something more important than any of those things. She had been willing to ask for help. Willing to accept kindness. Willing to trust that people could be good. And because of that willingness, her entire life had changed. Connor had gotten medical treatment that saved his face. Julie had found community, purpose, and love. And now she spent her days helping other families find the same hope she had found. The circle was complete. From receiving help to giving help. From despair to joy. From loneliness to family. From having nothing to having everything that mattered. "Mama, come play." Connor called from the bathtub, waving a rubber duck. "Coming, sweetheart." Julie entered the bathroom and knelt beside the tub, splashing water playfully while Andrew wrapped his arm around her shoulders. This was what mattered. Not money or status or perfection. Just this. Family. Love. Kindness. Hope. Julie Henderson had learned the most important lesson life could teach. That we are not meant to face hardship alone. That accepting help is strength, not weakness. That giving back is the greatest privilege of all. And that love, in all its forms, is what makes life worth living. She had started with nothing but love for her son. And from that one pure thing, everything else had grown. A community. A future. A life filled with purpose and joy. As she helped Andrew dry Connor off and get him into pajamas, as she read him bedtime stories and sang him lullabies, as she kissed his forehead where the birthmark used to be, Julie felt profound gratitude wash over her. Thank you, she thought. To the doctors who had helped her. To the community that had supported her. To the strangers who had become family. To Andrew for loving her. To Connor for making her a mother. To everyone who had shown her that kindness was real and love was possible. And as Connor drifted off to sleep, as Andrew pulled Julie close in their own bed, as the city lights of Nashville twinkled through their window, Julie Henderson knew one thing for certain. Her story had a happy ending. But more importantly, it had a beautiful beginning. Because every day forward would be filled with love, with purpose, with the joy of helping others the way she had been helped. The poor girl who had begged doctors to save her baby had become a woman who saved other families every single day. And that transformation, that journey from despair to hope, was the greatest miracle of all.